Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. And we are live in Scottsdale, Arizona, here at the Scottsdale Links Resort in Scottsdale, Arizona. And this is a Diamond, what is it? Diamond Resort property. Anyways, I'm with Roger Beshens. And Roger, first of all, let's talk about your background here. I know that you certainly are a student of pitching.
This where you supposed to check in or out there?
No, up there.
Yeah, I started in 1978 pitching, actually, as a little leaguer, and Joe Garagiola told me how to throw this slider, throw it like a football with a stiff wrist, and all through Little League, all the way up through high school, and I got as far as the Minnesota Twins minor league minicamp in 1986. And this slide, I love the slider, and that's all I talk about. Whenever I meet a pitcher, I bring up this slider.
Well, Joe Garagiola, of course, is obviously a former catcher who played, so if anybody can relate to the slider, Joe certainly can.
Yeah, he caught legends back then. He knows football stiff wrist. The only question that I have is when he said football stiff wrist, I didn't know if it was off center or on center. And as a seventh grader, I didn't even know about an off-center slider, so I threw it on center, and it was definitely good Guidry Carlton-esque right off the bat. So I used it for the next 10 years, and beautiful pitch.
So tell me a little bit about your background, Roger. Obviously, you mentioned something about Miami-Dade, but get into your whole pitching story.
High school, I dominated with this slider, and it was all about the slider. I wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't have got 10 strikeouts a game. The slider was my bread and butter, and I went to Miami-Dade afterwards, and then got picked at a tryout in Orlando. But that's pretty much. But it's all about the slider. I love this slider, and I want to teach people the slider. It's devastating, and I love teaching it every time I meet a pitcher.
You talked about Minnesota.
Yeah.
Going to that camp. Elaborate on that.
Oh, it was beautiful. I went down to Tinker Field, Orlando, June of '86, and Fred Waters was the scout. Jim Rance was the coordinator of it. It was his first year. And at the end of I did really well. And at the end of the tryout, Jim Rance said, "Come on down to Melbourne. We'll look at you for 10 days." And so I drove to the Melbourne Twins. We stayed at the Twins motel right at the airport. They gave me a uniform. I stayed with a guy, and we had 3 meals a day, and it was a great experience.
When you talk about pitchers today, and it seems like we're seeing more and more Tommy John operations, what do you think that's attributed to?
I don't know. My routine, I was like Nolan Ryan and Guidry back in the old days where we threw 150, 160 pitches. We rested our arms at least for 3 days. That was our routine. I don't know enough to know what the routine is with today's player. But if you, with any pitch, if you grip or tilt the ball wrong, that could be an issue, obviously.
Okay. All right. So you talked about Nolan Ryan. I mean,
yeah, those guys.
Nolan Ryan was just an unbelievable species altogether. What are your thoughts about Nolan Ryan's way that he went about doing business?
That guy probably threw 160 pitches a game. His arm built up, and he had that great curveball and all that. We all know about Nolan Ryan, but basically all those pitchers back then threw complete games. They threw over 150 pitches. Their routines were different, and a lot of those guys didn't have the injuries. So I kind of liked the way those guys and I went about it because I would throw 150 plus pitches, rest my arm for 3 full days, and then on the 4th and 5th day I'm ready 100%. So that was the routine back then. I don't know what's going on now, but
But what are your thoughts about specialization? Now, back in the day, we had complete games all the time. Now you got 6. A quality start's considered 6 innings, and you have a 1-inning guy for the 7th and the 8th, and of course the closer.
Yeah, that's just the way it is now. And these guys definitely should have no problem going 5-6 innings. And for whatever reason, I don't like the way. I think they should be able. I don't know why they cannot. I don't know what it is. They just don't throw enough or whatever. Their arms not. I don't know what it is. It's just something. There's something that needs to be looked at.
Do you think that weightlifting is a bit of the problem that may lead toward these Tommy John surgeries?
The weighted baseball I never got into when I was younger, so I can't speak a lot about it. But It's possible. I threw a tennis ball when I was younger for arm speed. That's the way I went about it. These guys have their routine, so yeah, whatever works for you. But I don't know injury-wise. I'm not a doctor, so I can't really say that.
Who are your favorite pitchers growing up as a kid?
Oh, absolutely, Ron Guidry and Steve Carlton with the slider. I watched that all the time. Sparky Lyle, too, and Rich Gossage. I was a Yankee fan growing up. But definitely Carlton and Guidry were my favorites. Tommy John, too. Tommy John, I enjoyed watching. At that time in the late 70s, he was throwing that sinker, and he was already on the downside. But I enjoyed watching Tommy John throw, too.
Well, I remember Frank Tanana of the Detroit Tigers was a hard thrower, but then he was forced to reinvent himself, and I think that began to set the trend for a lot of, pitchers, that were.
I remember that Nolan and
flamethrowers,
Tanana. I
right?
remember those two. Yeah, absolutely. I remember that time.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
give me
yeah.
your interpretation of what a guy is like when he has to reinvent himself midway through the process.
Well, if you don't know this slider, guess what? You need a secondary pitch. You better after that fastball, you have to find something. And right now, this slider, this football slider, I call it, is definitely the pitch.
All right, Major League Baseball has implemented a new rule with the 3-batter minimum. What are your thoughts about that?
I don't like it, but I don't like it at all. I don't like it at all. I really don't like it.
All right, well, why?
It just messes with the history of the game, and to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I just believe they're worried about the time of the game and all that, and that's why I don't like it. I think they should just be more traditional in that sense. I don't think that should be I don't know why they did that. I don't understand that.
But many years ago, they would have a reliever that went 2 or 3 innings, but yet a lot of us wonder about the 3-batter minimum. So where do you draw the line in certain cases about? I understand tradition. I've got no problem. You're taking away the chess match, which everybody loves about baseball anyways. But when you talk about the closers in the past that went to 2 or 3 innings or 3, that's where I wonder, is there really too much fuss about the rule?
Yeah, I just think it's a really bad decision going 3 batters. There's just no reason for it. I don't think there's any reason for it at all. Yeah, I don't think it's.
Down the road, though, they're talking about a pitch clock. Any thoughts about that?
30 seconds, like I remember that Reynoso guy for the Diamondbacks, the human rain delay, I called them. Every 30 seconds would take a pitch. So, but that's not really something that happens a lot. But I would, I think a pitch should be within 20 seconds. So actually having a pitch clock, I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's that bad right now where they have to do that.
Okay, when you look at the dynamics about the way managers deal with pitchers, do you tend to think that they're forced to baby them a little bit more? Or, because in some cases, again, I've always felt in a lot of ways that, obviously there's a lot bigger monetary investment in there.
Yeah, you have to baby him now. If there's any issue, yeah, absolutely. You don't want to throw a guy more than really like 100 pitches right now. So pretty much you got to worry about the guy. So I can understand just right around the 100 pitch mark. Yeah, you got to take him out pretty soon. Absolutely.
Now we've seen a disturbing trend where we're seeing combined no hitters, and to me that just I can't stomach that. I don't know. My cooking is worse than watching a combined no-hitter, but to me, a combined no-hitter devalues the accomplishment.
These guys are so specialized now, though. So if someone goes a good 7 no-hitter, you have a guy that you know what you can't push a guy. You can't put a guy's career on the line for the no-hitter. So it's just a decision that has to be made.
So tell me, have you written any books on this or doing a lot of public speaking? How do you get the word out since you're so specialized with the slider?
I just actually decided to go basically on Facebook, and I got more attention on Twitter in May of 2018. This pitch is so special that when I learned it, I never told anyone. I didn't want my competitors to know about it. When I went to Miami-Dade, I wasn't going to tell anyone. I was going to save it for a relative. And now that I'm older and I know I'm not going to have any kids or relatives that are going to throw it, I let the word out, and it's working. That's for sure.
But you know, have you done many videos or?
No, just on YouTube. I did a few videos in 2016. I started doing a video there, and then in 2018 more. But yeah, that's the only time I had videos or any kind of trying to get any kind of publicity.
Yeah, but you've got so much to offer, you know, and I'm glad we have the opportunity to bring your story out here. Why would you not take advantage of all the different things that are available? I mean, there's podcasts,
I've been
stories.
I've been retired the last 10 years, and when I got out and publicized this on Twitter, I never thought for a second that they would be hiring these pitch designers and non-professionals as pitching coaches all down the line to rookie ball. That stuns me, and I never thought in a million years that would happen. They're trying to say technology is helping this slider, and it absolutely isn't. This is something that's been around. Joe Garagiola saw the legends throw this pitch. He knew football stiff wrist. Now, when a lot of people knew over the years football stiff wrist, they might have knew football stiff wrist, but they did not know the tilt that I show. Because if that tilt isn't right, you're going to have depth issues, you're going to have command issues. So this is $1 million. This is $1 million, literally, a tilt. This tilt here is worth millions to people that know what they're doing.
How well did you know Joe Garagiola?
I didn't know him at all. I watched it on the game actually it was on the Game of the Week, 1978. I believe the game was at Fenway. Tony Kubek, Joe Garagiola. Right. I'm sitting there as a seventh grader, and Joe Garagiola says, "This is how you throw a slider. You throw it like a football stiff wrist." So I went out and it dropped 4 feet. I knew right away the shape of it was Guidry, Carlton-esque, and that was the happiest. Other than family, that was the happiest day of my life learning that slider.
All right, let's talk about the Houston Astros cheating scandal. Do you have any opinions on that, knowing full well that, you know, part of cheating is the ability to go ahead?
That's too far when you get cameras from. Everyone tried picking off. But not the way they did it. So that's terrible for the game. Let's hopefully that's over with.
All right, but I'm not so sure it'll be over with that much, because I have a feeling that the Houston Astros are going to have bullseyes on their chest. As much as everybody would say, don't throw at the other guy, don't tell that to a lot of players who are competitive. Yeah. You know, that want to kind of get even a little in their own way.
It'll pass. It'll take its course this year, and I think it'll be over.
Well, okay.
That's what I think. Yeah, they're gonna have a rough year. But I think after this year it'll be all right. That's what I think.
Now, let's talk about some general baseball questions. I don't think we'll ever see it, but, you know, could you ever see the designated hitter in both leagues?
Oh, gosh, that's just one of them. I love baseball so much, and you know what? My opinion really, I love it both ways. I love the strategy, and I love it. So my opinion on that is just let other people deal with it. I can live with either one.
Okay, well, what about the interleague play where you have the ability to see both styles?
It's good for the fans. It's good for the fans to have the two Chicago teams meet up and then New York. I like all that stuff. So that's good. That's good for the game. The fans deserve to see matchups like that. It's good that it's happening. I like it. So,
all right, let's talk about some pitchers that could have played in both eras. I think Roy Halladay would have been an old school guy that could have pitched back in the day where they were throwing lots of complete games. I'm sure there's a lot of other ones, but I would like to talk about Roy. Mm-hmm. You know, are there any particular pitchers in this day and age that could have pitched back in the previous era?
Oh, absolutely. These guys right now. I'll tell you what. Let's kind of go a little different here. Okay. These pitchers today that have this slider, that know this slider, are so fortunate. Think about the last 30 years that the guys that didn't know this slider. You're having a lot of average pitchers that are just coming up with this slider, and it's those poor guys the last 3-4 decades that didn't have this slider. Very unfortunate. I'm not going to mention names, but there's a couple major leaguer guys. I said, boy, didn't you wish you had this pitch? And it would have changed this whole game, because a lot of those guys that threw high 80s, they would have been able to throw the slider 82 miles an hour, 7 miles off their fastball, and instead they were throwing 78, and they didn't have the right tilt on it. So that's very interesting, I believe. I think let's go on to like the next question there.
Oh, that's okay. No problem.
Okay.
So, living in Arizona, do you get to many spring training games?
I go to a few and all that. It's hard for me kind of watching it because I can't play. I like playing, and I've been to a few. I don't go to a whole lot though.
Well, what about the Arizona Fall League? I know. Do you spend time going to that?
I just went to the last All-Star game there, and I saw Cole Uvilla, and I met Eno Saris and Eric Longenhagen. I actually had a really good time at the All-Star one watching, and I went down to Cole Uvilla, and I saw his grip down there. He didn't even see me. I was up above. So I really had a great time at that All-Star game. I talked to some nice people I never met. So that was I had a great time there.
All right, we'll close it out with this, okay? Since you are a slider guy, I'll let you have the floor about what you think people should know about the slider, since you seem to have a fair amount of stories about it. So go ahead, the floor is yours.
Okay, I call it the football slider. You grip it 2 or 4 seam on the label. You can use any grip you want. But the key is football stiff wrist, and you have on my YouTube channel, and you'll see the tilt. The tilt's very important. And without that tilt, you won't be able to command it as well, and it won't have the break and the speed. It won't be as tight and as hard. So the football slider, I believe, is it's right now. I believe there's over 200 major leaguers throwing it, and I believe it's just going to keep getting more and more. And also, you're seeing more. It's reported there's more curve grips, new grips on curves and sliders, and I truly believe that this is what it is. And it's actually still not well known, and for a reason, because why would you want your opponent, competitor, knowing about it? You have all these new pitch designers out there, and I believe they're mostly just teaching this slider, because think about it. What are they? They're saying, what are they teaching? They're not teaching a fastball. So this slider is going to be, it's going to keep continuing, this football slider, as I call it.
Okay, and you brought up an interesting point, so I'm really curious about this. When you talk about the slider, and then we talk about some major league towns being in high altitudes, how do you think that slider fares when you're dealing with places like Coors Field? I'm sure you probably have them here at Chase Field in downtown Phoenix, and of course, lots of hitters ballparks. So certain ballparks play a certain well depending on how the
It's all about adjusting. When you're there, if I went to Colorado and wherever I'm pitching, when you're in the bullpen, it's all about adjusting, commanding the pitch, and there's no reason that if you know what you're doing, you have to command this pitch. Without command of this slider, you're seeing what's happening. They're hanging the ball, they're home runs, and this pitch is usually only good as a ball. It comes right down the middle, and at that last second, it's out of there. So the pitcher wants to be ahead in the count. So it's all about commanding the pitch. And the same thing, when you go to a ballpark, if there's humidity or not, whatever the conditions are, it's all about adjusting, commanding the pitch. So,
are there any particular arm angles that are less taxing on the arm?
I believe the easiest one's over the top, where you get the vertical. I really like that one. As you start dropping down, ticking down slots, that's where there could be an issue with the way the grip and the actual wrist is. So you really have to know what's going on there, and there can be an injury, obviously, if it's thrown wrong. And a lot of times it'll take a year. It's not going to happen right away unless it's really thrown wrong. So you're seeing a lot of injuries on a few major league guys. There's a lot of them actually. After a year, they have a good year with it, and then the next year something happens. Their tilt's not right or whatever. You hear some major league managers say, well, his tilt got better as the game went on. That, to me, right there, what do you mean his tilt got better? That means he's doing something new, or there's something. So, yeah, if that tilt's wrong on the slider, you're going to have the injury. And you got to know what you're doing. Someone has to teach this the correct way.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and it's funny, before we close out the broadcast, I was over last year at Wake Forest University, and they had one of those one of those demonstrations with all the technical stuff in terms of arm angles. Do you think that a lot of those types of clinics are helpful in terms of being able to educate younger people, such as college or even high school, in terms of how they go ahead and not only master this pitch, but just in pitches in general?
This slider I'm concerned about, but the school I really don't. Any kind of schooling's good and all that, but the slider. I'm just concerned about the slider if it's thrown wrong, and these people. I just wish more people would actually contact me or look into it a little more, because I can straighten. I threw this for over a dozen years, all different arm slots and angles, and I would really like to help people learn how to throw it right, because it's definitely it's for some people are hurting their arms on it.
Okay, well, since you want them to contact you, first of all, you can mention what your Twitter handle is, and then we'll follow your YouTube channel before we close out the broadcast. Just, folks, we are on the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network, 108 Stitches, baseball talk around the horn. We are live from the Scottsdale Links Resort, which is a diamond resort property here in beautiful Arizona. Today, unfortunately, it's raining outside. Who knows if there'll be any Cactus League, so action, but we'll find out. We still have a long ways to go. But anyways, back to you, Roger. How can folks get a hold of you?
On Twitter, just get a hold of me on Twitter, and I'll get right back to you. I'm on there every day, so just fire away at me.
Okay, and what's your Twitter handle?
It's RB at Beshens. That's RBESHENS on Twitter.
And how can they follow your YouTube channel?
Roger, put in Roger Beshens, put in Football Slider, or South Florida Tribune. But Roger Beshens, Football Slider. That's
and good. Roger is a contributing writer here for the South Florida Tribune. We're glad to have him send us his material so that, again, he can educate a lot of young pitchers. And I think that with this being a pitch which isn't taxing like the fastball. Now, one other thing that just came to mind. You say a fastball usually is about, 95 miles an hour?
Whatever your fastball is, this slider will be about 7 miles off if you throw it as hard as you can.
Okay, so that's a variable.
Yeah.
Is a 7 mile an hour difference. So, all right. Well, this concludes our special edition baseball talk around the horn, and we are so glad to have Roger here on site. So, baseball talk around the horn, 108 stitches, whatever it is what it is. But the reality of the situation, Roger certainly gave you lots of different reasons to not tax the arm itself. So any closing thoughts, Roger?
Thank you so much, Scott, for having me on here. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. And we hope to bring you some other coverage here in Arizona. Of course, don't forget to follow our other programs, the Sports Exchange and the South Florida Tribune podcast, as well as the other ones on our lineup. Go to www.southfloridatribune.com. All right, on behalf of Roger Beshens, my name is Scott Morgan, around the Motor City Badmouth, saying good afternoon, everybody.